Leo souls, brace yourself because what you're about to hear will shake something deep within you. A call from destiny is making its way to you right now, and the news it carries will stop your heart for just a second. It won't be loud, it won't come with flashing signs, but it will feel like the universe just whispered your name. And when it hits, you'll understand exactly why you couldn't sleep last night. Why your chest felt tight for no reason. Why the world suddenly got quieter, as if it was holding its breath just for you. If you've been feeling that strange pull in your spirit. Not anxiety, not fear, just an unspoken awareness that something is about to shift, then you are right where you need to be. This video was meant to find you. Not by chance, but by frequency. By the vibration of your soul finally aligning with a message you were always meant to receive. And that message? It will knock you off your seat, not with chaos, but with clarity. There is a sacred moment approaching, one that your heart has been prepared for long before your mind could catch up. It may come through a sudden phone call, a sentence you overhear, a dream that doesn't let go, or a realization so raw, it strips away every wall you've carefully built around yourself. And Leo, it won't be there to break you. It's here to reveal you. To call you back to your own brilliance. You've been strong for so long. You've worn resilience like armor. But you weren't born to only survive, you were born to lead, to ignite, to remind others what true courage looks like. That's why this message is coming to you now. Not because you're lost, but because you're finally still enough to hear what's been waiting to reach you. Your spirit has always been attuned to divine timing. And the alignment happening, no, it's not small. It's cosmic. The colors that surround this season of awakening are golden amber and burnt orange tones of spiritual fire, of solar royalty, of rising through the ashes with vision, not just victory. Watch for the angel numbers 1010, 1616, and 22. These are not just numbers, they are confirmations that the gates are open, and you're being called to walk through, not as someone hoping for a sign, but as someone remembering who they truly are. And before we go deeper, let me take a moment to say this: thank you. Truly. Your presence here is not just appreciated, it's honored. Every like you've given, every comment you've shared, every time you've hit that subscribe button, it's helped grow this sacred space we call eternal mindfulness into something alive, something healing, something that's reaching souls like yours at exactly the right time. Your support isn't just keeping this channel alive, it's making sure that messages like this continue to find the people who need them most. But trust me, Leo, what comes next will change the way you look at your path completely. This isn't just another reading, it's a revelation. So stay with me until the very last word, because the universe is just getting started. And you are ready now. Before we continue, I want you to comment below, what part of your heart is quietly trembling as you hear this? Don't overthink it, just speak from your soul. Because when we speak from truth, we light the way for others to find their own. Leo, if you've made it this far, it means your soul is listening, not with ears, but with memory. Not memory of facts or events, but memory of something much older, something sacred. Because what's coming to you, this shocking news, this call from destiny, is not here to startle you into action. It's here to remind you of something you already knew. It's not a disruption, it's a divine echo. A reflection of the promise you once made to yourself, long before the world taught you how to forget. You are not just hearing this message now, you are remembering it. And that changes everything. Your path, Leo, has not been ordinary. While the world may see the flame of your strength, your dignity, your brilliance, they do not always see the shadows you've walked through to protect that light. You've led with fire, with pride, with heart, but how many times have you stood tall while silently unraveling inside? How many moments have you held your head high while carrying the weight of questions you could never quite ask aloud? This is the paradox of the Leo's soul, courageous and radiant, yet often quietly searching for a place to finally rest without being needed. And so, the message that is on its way, whether it arrives through a dream, a phrase that catches you off guard, or a call that seems trivial but won't leave your Mindy's, not meant to confuse you. It is not here to shock for the sake of drama. It's an invitation. A spiritual alignment between timing and truth. Think of it not as a surprise, but as a door you've been unconsciously walking toward for years. This moment is not a coincidence. It is the result of every time you chose light when darkness seemed easier. Every time you paused in silence and still hoped anyway. In the sacred language of the tarot, this moment is woven between three powerful archetypes. The Judgment card calls your soul to attention, not for punishment, but for awakening. It signals that an inner reckoning is near, and it brings clarity to a purpose that once felt distant. The Knight of Swords rushes in with intensity, a message that moves fast, sharp, undeniable. And the Star follows with peace, a luminous reassurance that healing is not only possible, but destined. This is not a story of endings. This is the quiet birth of a new chapter. We live in a world that often asks us to perform our strength, to wear our hope like a costume and keep going no matter the cost. But this moment, this particular message is not asking you to pretend anymore. It asks only one thing of you: be still enough to receive. Not to figure it all out. Not to control it. But to recognize that the truth has been waiting for you, not the other way around. Just like the seed does not chase the rain, this calling knows exactly where to find you. And perhaps that is the miracle we miss in our busyness. Not every answer comes through struggle. Sometimes the most powerful truths arrive in stillness, in the pause between one breath and the next. Just as the rhythm of our heart doesn't ask for permission to beat, the rhythm of your soul knows when it's time to rise. What you are about to receive is not meant to test your strength, it's meant to affirm your readiness. This is your confirmation. Not from another person, not from validation, but from the vast intelligence of the universe itself. So if you feel the trembling, the anticipation, the slight cracking of your inner world, it's not fear. It's your soul expanding to meet the moment it was always meant to walk into. This is not a warning. This is your permission. This is the whisper of a promise being fulfilled. And now, Leo, your only task is to say yes. Quietly, sincerely, soulfulize. Just when you thought you had finally figured out how to keep your voice quiet, how to adjust your heartbeat to the world's pace, how to make peace with the silence, something unexpected begins to stir. It's not loud. It's not disruptive in the usual sense. But it touches something deep, something ancient, like a ripple returning to its source. You sense it before you can explain it. And suddenly, the stillness you've learned to survive and begins to tremble. That's when you know, this isn't ordinary. This is a call, and it's not coming from outside of you, it's being awakened from within. We often equate peace with stillness, but not all stillness is peace. Sometimes, it's resignation. Sometimes, It's the way we protect ourselves after carrying too much for too long. And in that illusion of stillness when everything appears calm but feels hollow, this divine call breaks through like light through tightly drawn curtains. You feel it in your skin, in your breath, in the sudden pressure behind your eyes when no one's looking. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for you to feel ready. It simply is. It's the voice of your higher self, the echo of every truth you've buried under the rubble of survival, returning like a tide you forgot was part of you. This moment was never meant to scare you. It's not here to disrupt your life but to realign it. And it always comes when we least expect it, when we believe we've settled, adjusted, adapted. That's how sacred timing works. The universe waits until we've quieted the chaos long enough to hear the truth clearly. And the truth is, you never really gave up. You just got tired. And now, you're being reawakened not by force, but by resonance. Astrologically, we know that Leo is ruled by the sun, symbol of illumination, identity, and divine self-expression. But what happens when even the sun dims behind clouds of overthinking and overfunctioning? What happens when the lion stops roaring, not because it's lost its power, but because it no longer feels heard? This is the moment where a sacred vibration cuts through the noise, not with fire but with clarity. And clarity is the most powerful form of awakening. Not chaos. Not emotion. Clarity. It's the soft but undeniable knowing that something in your life is about to shift and you're not just the witness, you're the reason. This call may not come through an actual phone, though for some it might. It might not be spoken out loud. It may arrive through a dream that leaves your chest heavy for no clear reason. It may be a sentence you overhear that stings even though it wasn't directed at you. Or a question you ask yourself in the dark that finally lands with weight. Is this really all there is? That's the universe's way of ringing the bell. Not to wake you up from sleep, but to wake you up from a life that's no longer big enough for your soul. And if you've ever whispered into the dark, please, someone tell me I'm not crazy. Tell me I'm not just imagining this pull, this shift, this. Remembering, then let this be that answer. You're not crazy. You're awakening. You're tuning back into the frequency you were always meant to live on. You're hearing the truth you asked for, just not in the form you expected. Because the most sacred calls don't shout. They arrive like a soft drumbeat in the center of your chest, constant, growing, impossible to ignore. And if you feel that thump now, if something inside you is leaning forward as you listen, it's because this message was never random. It was always yours. You just needed to become still enough, brave enough, open enough to hear it. There comes a point in every soul's journey when survival is no longer the goal, when simply making it through the day isn't enough. For Leo, that moment has already happened. It may not have looked dramatic from the outside. In fact, it probably looked quiet, just another day. But deep within, there was a shift. You stepped out of a space that once held you captive. Not because the door finally opened, but because you realized you were the one holding the key all along. And ever since that moment, whether you realized it or not, you've been carrying something much bigger than yourself. You see, Leo, your role is not just to shine, but to ignite. You are not only the flame, you are the keeper of fire. The strength you've cultivated through every closed door, every silent cry, every moment when you showed up anyway, that strength isn't just your own. It's meant to be shared. When you walk into a room, you bring more than your presence. You bring a frequency that says, it's possible to survive the storm and still be soft. It's possible to break and still be whole. It's possible to have been lost and still become the way. In astrology, Leo's rulership by the sun makes this sign a natural beacon of truth, of warmth, of life force itself. But this light doesn't exist in isolation. It exists to guide, to comfort, to awaken others. And you, Leo, are not here to chase recognition. You're here because Somyeon somewhere Yeri is silently asking for a sign that they're not alone. And unknowingly, you may be that sign. That moment when someone else sees you really sees you and realizes that if you made it out, maybe they can too. This is the deeper truth of what it means to hold the gate. It's not about authority or superiority. It's about humility. It's about presence. It's about being able to stand at the edge of transformation and simply be there, not to pull others through, but to leave the door open long enough for them to walk in when they're ready. And when you do that, Leo, you're doing something sacred. You are answering a prayer that was never spoken out loud, but was always felt. In the language of tarot, this role is beautifully captured through 3 cards: Strength, Queen of Wands, and Ace of Cups. Strength reminds us that courage is quiet and rooted in compassion. It's the gentle power that knows how to listen, how to wait, how to forgive. The Queen of Wands represents your fire in its highest expression: radiant, confident, magnetic, but also nurturing. She leads by example, not by force. And the Ace of Cups? That's the new beginning you inspire in others. The softening of hearts. The moment someone believes again, simply because you believed first. It's easy to think that we're just passing through life, managing our own struggles, trying to stay afloat. But what if the very wound you thought disqualified you is what makes you the bridge for someone else? What if your healing is not just your own, but a message written in the language of energy, one that only those in the dark can feel? So let me ask you, have you ever considered that you might be the answer to someone's quietest prayer? Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. Because you didn't pretend it was easy. Because you kept going. Because you became the kind of light that doesn't blind, but guides. Leo, the path you've walked wasn't meant to break you. It was meant to forge you into a keeper of warmth, a lighthouse for the weary, a soul who reminds others that grace is still possible. And whether or not you realize it, someone out there is already looking toward your flame and whispering, maybe I can find my way too. There are moments in a Leo's life that never make it into words. They happen in the silence of late nights, in the space between showing up for others and being seen for who you really are. You've had to be strong so many times that your strength began to speak louder than your softness. And yet, beneath all the roaring and resilience, there were chapters only your soul could read, the times you gave without asking for recognition, loved without expecting to be chosen, and stayed quiet just to keep others comfortable even when your own heart was breaking. These are not forgotten pages. The universe has read them all. What's arriving now is not a reward in the traditional sense. It is not applause or a medal. It's more subtle, more sacred than that. This is a divine response. A quiet confirmation that all those invisible offerings of love, loyalty, and sacrifice were never wasted. The pain you carried in silence did not disappear into the void. It created light. And that light has been traveling back to you ever since. The call you are now receiving, the message that's about to reach your life in the most unexpected way, is not here to ask more from you. It's here to show you that everything you've given has already moved mountains. Leo, you've often been the one holding the room together with a steady presence and a bright smile, even when your own world felt like it was falling apart behind closed doors. And when you asked, "Does anyone even see me?" you may have heard nothing but the echo of your own voice. But the truth is, you were always seen. You were always known. Not by those who couldn't look past your strength, but by the greater current of life that flows far beyond human validation. That current has been holding your energy gently, like a note tucked into the pocket of time, waiting to be opened when you were ready to receive it. Numerologically, this moment vibrates with the energy of 17, the number linked to the star in the tarot. It is the number of hope after devastation, the light that returns only after we've dared to walk through the dark without guarantees. The star doesn't shine because it's untouched by pain, it shines because it has learned how to become light because of pain. That's what you're doing now. You are no longer looking for confirmation from the world. You're realizing that your confirmation was built into every choice you made from integrity. And now, the universe is mirroring that back to you in the form of synchronicities, signs, and small moments that move you to tears, not because they're loud but because they're finally real. Receiving this energy doesn't require you to perform, prove, or prepare. It asks only that you be present. To place your hand over your chest, take a deep breath, and whisper to yourself, "I am ready." Not because you've figured it all out, but because you've learned how to stay open in a world that often teaches us to shut down. You've watered seeds in other people's gardens with the very last drops of your own well, and now it's time for rain to return to you. And not in forceful floods but in the steady rhythm of grace. Healing isn't always a grand revelation. Sometimes it's the quiet sense of being acknowledged after a lifetime of effort. Sometimes it's recognizing that you were never alone in those invisible moments. That you were guided, protected, remembered. This is not about being rescued. It's about reclaiming your light fully, freely, and without apology. Because the version of you that walked through fire is the same one now standing in the glow of a long-awaited sunrise. And this time, Leo, the light is for you. Everything that's coming your way now is not asking for more effort, it's asking for presence. Not the kind of presence that demands you to stand tall or act like you have it all figured out, but the quiet, honest presence of someone who has been shaped by the storms and still chooses to stay open. The kind of presence that doesn't strive but simply is. You don't need to rehearse for what's coming. You've already rehearsed in silence, in sleepless nights, in the way your heart kept believing long after your mind tried to let go. What's arriving isn't delayed, it's perfectly timed. And not just in time but in divine rhythm with the deepest readiness of your soul. Sometimes, it's not a moment of clarity that changes everything. It's a feeling. A breeze that moves across your face just as a thought lands in your chest. A stranger's words that echo something you've whispered in private. A look from someone that seems to recognize something in you you'd forgotten was there. These are not coincidences. They're energetic messages, encoded pulses from the universe sent straight into your field. And you, Leo, are receptive now because you've allowed yourself to soften without losing your fire. You've remained grounded, even when the ground beneath you shifted. And now, without needing to chase or force, you are beginning to attract. Like a star that doesn't run after planets, it shines, and they align. There is a unique vibration in the Leo soul. Astrologically, Leo rules the heart and the spine, symbols of courage and compassion. And when you live in alignment with your core truth, your aura naturally becomes magnetic. You don't have to ask to be seen. You become seen. You don't have to convince the right people to enter your life. They arrive because your light speaks their language. But that light can only reach its full resonance when you're still enough to let it shine through the parts of you that were once hidden by armor. The timing of this message is not a mistake. It arrives at the exact moment your energy becomes clear enough to recognize it. You may think, but I haven't healed yet. I'm not fully ready. But readiness isn't perfection. It's willingness. And you are willing now. The question is, will you answer when destiny calls, even if it calls in a voice you didn't expect? What if the person reaching out is the one who once hurt you? Will you listen with a new heart? What if the opportunity seems too sudden, too good, too unexpected? Will you trust it without waiting for it to break? What if the thing you've prayed for finally appears not in the future, but right now, in real time? Will you allow yourself to live inside that answered prayer? Your soul has always known how to recognize truth when it arrives, even if your mind doubts it. So in this moment, you don't need a plan. You don't need to prove anything. You don't even need to fully understand. You just need to breathe. To lean in. To acknowledge that what you feel stirring in you is not anxiety, it's expansion. It's your field opening to receive what was always meant for you. Let your energy do the speaking now. Let your healing speak through your presence. There are souls watching, sensing, waiting for a signal that it's safe to trust again, and your light may be that signal. You are not here to save the world. But your choice to stand in your truth, softly and bravely, could be the moment someone else chooses to stop hiding. And maybe, just maybe, that someone is you. Not every transformation arrives with a bang. Sometimes, it comes as a quiet recognition in your chest, a single breath that feels different, or a moment of stillness where your soul leans forward, knowing it has finally been seen. If you've made it to this point, then you've already answered the call, not by doing something drastic, but by listening with your heart. And perhaps, that's the most courageous thing of all. Because when destiny reaches for you, it doesn't need fireworks. It just needs your presence. It just needs that quiet moment where your inner voice whispers, yes. I remember now. So I invite you, gently but with purpose, to take a breath, not to escape the weight of life, but to create space for what is about to be born. Let your hand rest over your heart, not as a performance, but as an acknowledgement. You are still here, and your light still matters. Ask yourself, softly, which part of me is waking up right now? Because that's the part the universe is speaking to. That's the part the message was always meant for. You don't need more answers. You don't need to fix anything right now. What you need is trust. Trust that everything you've walked through has prepared you for this moment. Trust that the timing is not only divine, but intentional. And trust that this isn't just a random message you stumbled upon. This is the result of a soul that kept believing even when the world went silent. That light inside of you? It never went out. And right now, someone else might be seeing it for the first time because you finally let it shine. Maybe the real magic isn't in trying to manifest something new, but in remembering that you've always had the power to choose what comes next. Maybe your next chapter doesn't start with more striving, but with more surrender. Maybe the next right thing isn't a giant leap, but a tiny step guided by your own intuitive knowing. Ask yourself, if the opportunity you've been waiting for arrived today, would you recognize it? Would you receive it? Would you allow yourself to believe that you're worthy of it, without explanation? This is not a time to shrink back. This is not a time to doubt your alignment. This is your time to rise, not with noise, but with clarity. You already have everything you need, not because you've done everything perfectly, but because you've stayed soft, even when life tried to harden you. And that softness? That's sacred. That's your signal. That's what makes you magnetic to the miracles already on their way. If this message has found you at the exact moment you needed it, it's not by accident. You're being guided. And now, it's your turn to guide others simply by being who you are. So take a deep breath, trust the light within you, and step forward with gentle strength. You are not lost. You are being remembered. And someone, somewhere, has been waiting to meet the version of you that is just now emerging. Now I'd love to hear from you. In the comments, tell me, what is the very first thing that came up in your heart after watching this? Don't filter it. Just share from your soul. And if this video spoke to you, please like it, subscribe, and hit the bell so you won't miss the next divine message waiting just around the corner. This is Eternal Mindfulness, and you've just received a message guided by the highest energies of astrology, tarot, soul healing, and the law of attraction, crafted by a voice from the top 0.1% of this sacred field. Welcome home.